For anybody showing up later. Hang on. There we go. I just had to share this, guys. I'm sorry. I had an idea, and I just wanted to get it out there before I forgot about it. Because that happens to be a lot. You might say I'm an idea man, which anybody who knows anything about reality means I'm a worthless, lazy layabout who doesn't actually do anything in my life, which is fairly true. So I want you to picture the beginning of Elder Scrolls 6. We were talking about this in chat while I'm doing some work for the national campaign. And so I'm sitting there thinking, and we're talking about what Elder Scrolls 6 is probably going to be. And we're talking about how it's probably just going to be like another Elder Scrolls and how it's going to be just another, Skyrim kind of a situation, that kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably true, but it'd be awesome. And I didn't actually finish typing that sentence out. Because you ever have an idea that just explodes in your mind? I don't mean like, I mean like expands. Like you've got the idea and then you see how it branches out. And so now you suddenly have 100 ideas. That's like, oh my God. And I just had to share this, so forgive me for this weird indulgence that I'm doing here. Imagine if Elder Scrolls 6 starts with the war against the Thalmor having been gone on for several years. They fight. We don't actually get to see them betray the Imperials and go after Skyrim or anything like that. They're just like, no, they're not. They're not doing that. That's already happened. That's already done. They've gone to war and they're winning. They're crushing the rest of the forces. The other forces have finally unified, but because of Skyrim's situation, they're not as unified as they could have been. They need to actually... basically, we're losing. The Thalmor are defeating us. And yet, here's the thing. When I say defeating, I mean in the worst possible situation. I mean, we basically have a Ragnarok situation going on here, for those of you who know anything about that kind of thing. By the way, hi, Shadow. Hope you're feeling warmer. And so... In this Ragnarok situation, the Thalmor are getting Pyrrhic victory after Pyrrhic victory after Pyrrhic victory. They're winning. They're claiming territories. They're pushing into High Rock. They're pushing into Skyrim. But it's costing them so much that the elves. There's internal strife amongst the Thalmor. The actual High Elven people are actually starting to go against the Thalmor as an organization. There's so much mess going on behind the scenes there because it's costing them so much, but they are still winning, which brings us to the other side of the conflict where everyone is basically on the run, barely surviving in a almost rebellion against Galactic Empire situation where any victory is a major victory. And for the most part, victories in this case mean surviving away and kind of doing a controlled retreat situation. Okay, you with me? And so we have a degree of unification amongst most of the races, a reestablishment of communication and the beginnings of friendship between, for example, the Dark Elves and the Argonians, just to name one example of this kind of thing. And hey, Javan. Hey, everyone. By the way, hey, everyone. Sorry, I didn't say hi to everyone. I'm just an idiot. And I don't know why the chat's screwed up. Hang on, let me try and see if I can get the other chat working. Or maybe I don't have the other chat on here. Maybe that's why it's not working. There we go. Oh, that's not the other chat. I don't have the other chat established on here. Well, no wonder. Let's just go here. Ignore Just Cause 3. That's irrelevant. I had Just Cause 3 up in the background because I was in a really bad mood. I wanted to shoot people. What? Anyways, ignore Just Cause 3. That's not there. Here, let's just get rid of that. Okay, so you have this terrible situation as basically one of those horrible situations that happens in real life. In other words, you'd think the Argonians and the Nords and the Imperials and the Red Guards and the Orcs and the Dunmer and everyone else should have actually unified against the Thalmor threat. And while that is certainly true to an extent, it basically isn't true. They aren't actually unified. They're still infighting. They're still bickering. And it's not like... I'm saying that wrong, because it's not infighting. It's not like the Nords are actually fighting the the other races. It's not like the Argonians are actually fighting the other races, but they're not coordinating. They are not presenting a unified front to the Thalmor invasion. You with me? You understand the problem that engenders? Because even though technically this combination of people and militaries are actually strong enough to resist them, it's only if they're actually coordinating and unified and tactically or arranging the tactics with each other. You've basically got, I mean, you've basically got 5 or 7 or 12 different armies who are not doing anything in relation to each other, and so the Thalmor, that's why the Thalmor have been having such victories. But again, because the Thalmor are not that inherently superior to the other races, they're not having that decisive victories. So again, everything's screwed, okay? Everywhere is screwed up. This is where the game starts. This is where Elder Scrolls 6 starts. On the northern coasts of, I forget the name of the city, I'd have to, let me pull up a map really quick, because there are Elder Scrolls maps, and I've got one right here, actually. Tamriel. Boom, boom. Yes, what is that place? Farron might work. North Point might work. These are all in High Rock. We could also do something like Hagath. Hagath, I don't know how to pronounce that, in Hammerfell. There's a few locations, but it has to be a coastal city. That's really important. Because what happens is you are someone who is fighting in this war. No background. By the way, no background. Just, no they're not, Niklaus, you kidding me? Pfft, the Thalmor are superior. Ugh. Yeah, the Nazis were superior too. Anyways, so, so you're part of, the resistance, obviously, even if you're a high elf, even if you're an Altmer, and you're fighting back and you're trying to push back against this particular invasion, and it is, of course, a losing battle, and you kill quite a few of the enemy as you're going down, and then, this is great, the Akaviri invade. Come on, tell me it wouldn't be awesome. The Akaviri invade. You just see ships in the horizon. Ships, and everyone's like, what are those? And there's just this moment where the battle kind of slows to a still as more and more of the soldiers of both sides start to realize that there's this fleet coming, and it's just like... And just that moment of, oh my god... And then, and then they land and they just start massacring their way through. And yeah, it's at that point, it's a flat-out run. It's a controlled retreat, trying to get the hell out of Dodge as the Akaviri crush that location like a bug. And I could keep going with this idea. Hey, Bernice, I could keep going with this idea. I mean, the idea of like I said, even in the face of the Thalmor unified threat, the other races couldn't unify. So even though there is this even more overwhelming, even more powerful threat now, the races are still not unified, and you could play a part in either trying to help unify them in a negative way, trying to unify them in a positive way, preventing them from unifying in a positive way, or preventing them from unifying in a negative way. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I'm getting a little out of breath. I've been a little out of breath today anyways. I'm like having asthma attacks. I don't know what's up with that. So, negative reinforcement, right? Let's say you are, let's just put this in Mass Effect terms. You're a renegade, okay? And you want to help. You want to help unify these people, but they're idiots. So you look at the situation and you're like, okay, I'm going to pinpoint select the leaders and the military and the government and the politicians and the merchants and the people with the money and the power and the wealth who are against each other and kill them, or bribe them, or blackmail them, or otherwise coerce them into working with each other, removing selectively from power, going through the entire power structure and fixing it. Or, of course, you could try a more positive route to unify, right? Now, this just sounds pretty obvious. Work with them, get them to work with each other, have diplomacy, get their trust, force them to acknowledge each other's differences and have a degree of mutual respect. You know, the standard Mass Effect style thing, really. Then, of course, there's the negative form of negative thing. In other words, well, screw all of these people. Let's just kill them all. Or, of course, maybe we want to positively affect a negative change, which sounds really weird, actually. But if you think about it, it would be really funny, because positively affecting a negative change would basically mean joining the Akaviri and saying, hi, yeah, I'd like to be with you, because these guys are idiots, and I'm kind of sick of them. And of course, you know, you don't have to, and you can play, there's several different ways to push through that, positively or negatively. You know, there's several different ways you can unfold that. It's a different way to look at the all roads lead to Rome theory of coding. In other words, if you're paying attention, nothing I'm saying would change the main quest line's direction at all. It would change how it got to that location. It would change the flavor of the moment. It would change how things unfold. It would change how the people look at you and how people react to you, and you know, individual dialogues, the ways that characters think of you, that kind of thing would change, even though you're still reaching toward this specific point. Now, of course, if you're going with the Akaviri, that's probably a different branch, but you get the point. I'm okay with two branches. Another way you could do this, another way that we could tie into this, why not have Conquest be a part of it? Bear with me. Why not have it be a situation where you can actually, and I've said this for years that I've wanted this in an Elder Scrolls game. I really have. In fact, we were talking about this in Fallout 4. Why not be able to carve out your own kingdom? Why not be able to carve out your own little fiefdom of the territories, positively or negatively? Either conquering them for your own power and aggrandizement, or unifying them under a singular flag, or conquering them for the sake of the Akaviri, or there's several different ways you can have that unfold, and again, have that same general mechanic be along the line of the all roads lead to Rome theory. You can have that same mechanic no matter how you go through the story, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, Baronessa, exactly. You could throw your lot in with the remnants of the Empire, or the remnants of elsewhere, or the remnants of what's left of the Argonian pieces, or the Thalmor, if you're, you know, a weirdo. But have the option be there. Or, of course, make it your own fiefdom. Okay, y'all failed. I'm gonna lead things now. You know? Yeah, no, Last Samurai, that's not the point. Now, see, I've actually thought several times about how to make a conquest mechanic work, and I've come up with several answers. The Breton Empire, yes. First and foremost, Radiant quests. Oh, right. Well, those are in a closet under some shoes and a bit of old twine. I'm not sure what else is in there. I think there's like a code or something. Why not have a situation where... I'm trying to think how best to describe this, because I can see it. I could literally picture the gameplay of how Conquest would actually work. No Radiant quests. No sending off agents from a Facebook board. None of that. None of that. You need to actually go out there and do that. Oh yeah, by the way, Bragwin's idea is something else I had an idea of there. The concept of trying to fix the divine situation, which has been broken since, let's be honest, a little after Oblivion. Excuse me. How's that a controversial statement? I just personally think Radiant quests shouldn't exist in this style of game that I am describing. I phrase the way I say that very specifically. I'm not trying to say Radiant quests don't belong in open world games, or in Elder Scrolls games, or Fallout games. But the game I am describing should not be dynamically generated in any way, shape, or form. It should be purely statically generated, in my opinion. Races are in Elder Scrolls 6. Well, we've got the humans and the Argonians, and honestly, I think that's all that really matters. Right? No, I'm kidding. We got everything. Every race. Except you cannot play the Thalmor. Or the Thalmor? Am I saying that right? You cannot play Cave Elves. Okay, fine, you can play Cave Elves. God, if you really want to. The way I'm thinking it... Thalmor. I know I was close. Thalmor. Here's a fortress, okay? You want this fortress. It's well positioned. It'll allow you to connect some trade routes to each other. Trade routes give you actual gameplay benefits in the way of better merchants and some money being put into your coffers over time. And of course, completely non-gameplay benefits. Additional NPCs wandering around, different flavor dialogues happening in the area, maybe a few additional quests that spawn only in certain towns that reach certain levels, basically, that kind of a thing. So in other words, there's like direct gameplay and more role-playing story benefits for building up towns and conquering. You with me? Damn it, Shaman. No, Shadow. No, that would take forever, and I don't want to lose the soul. Okay, so there's a fortress you want to conquer, and you're like, let's go, conquer it. And so you have a certain pool of troops that you can assign to it. I picture for this level of complexity wouldn't actually be huge, because it isn't necessary. But you would have troops that would have different levels of skill, proficiency, gear, etc. Now, here's the important part. You go with them, okay? You go with those troops to help take this place. You don't have to. Your absence lowers the chance of conquest significantly. We're talking like almost to the level of you shouldn't do it unless you are way overdeveloped over your enemies. You with me? Damn it, Samurai. So the idea, the intent here is you go with your troops to conquer this fortress. So they actually spawn the troops. You can set up like, okay, here's where we're going to set up our initial formation. Go straight in. We're going to go over here. Maybe I want these over here. Maybe I want these over here. That kind of a thing. The fortress, of course, has its own defenders and whatnot. Now, the idea here, and this would be a little bit difficult to balance. This would probably take a lot of iteration to get this working properly. But it would take a point... I don't actually know what that is, Nicola. Sorry. It would take, the idea is you can conquer this fortress by yourself, but it should be difficult to do so. This is probably one of the only times in the game I would introduce scaling, level scaling. You guys know I'm actually pretty against level scaling in general. But the one thing I would do to level scale to try and encourage you to actually bring troops to this is I would level scale their commander. Like their champion, their chief guy, right? Nothing else. The rest of the troops be normal troops based off of, whatever it is that the region should be at in terms of gear levels, proficiency, etc. But that one commander is someone that's going to be a bit of a difficulty. So you fighting a bunch of troops and that guy should again, quote unquote, this would take iteration to balance, be difficult to do. But if you succeed at it, then you do it. So you can do it yourself, if harder. You can do it with troops, which would you can do it with your elite. Let's really lay out the options. You can do it by yourself, and it's most difficult. You can do it with troops you're trying to level, or troops you're trying to bolster. So it's still going to be kind of hard, and you're going to try and hopefully, of course, be motivated to keep your troops alive, because troop death would be permanent, by the way. So you try to keep your troops alive, and so they get better. You bring some of your medium troops, or you bring your elite troops. And you bring your elite troops, you basically just walk over a place and take it. New locations mean new trade routes, mean new fast travel points. Oh, by the way, that's how I would do fast travel. I would give that as a genuine gameplay bonus for conquering locations, regardless of everything else, regardless of inventory and improved trade and all the empire building. If absolutely nothing else, a player who just wants to play by themselves and doesn't want to deal with the conquest thing can still go conquer a given spot by themselves and just mulch through it, and then they get a new fast travel point, which enables them to get around a little bit better. Who says we're working with Bethesda's AI? God, people. You know nothing about Operation Bellhammer. Bam! Actually, I think that this could work with the Gamebryo engine. It would just take a lot of work. And then you have to defend it. That's true. And there's other aspects of the empire building thing, but that's actually kind of it. And I say that weirdly because I don't want to have too much emphasis on the empire building. I just want that in my Elder Scrolls. I have for years. I have wanted that for so long. So that's the empire building aspect. We're just gonna put that over to the side there. Yes, fearsome. Although I think in an ideal world, I would have that be an option. I would literally have there be a script so that when you can go into the menu and say, I want to do defense missions or whatever you want to call it, you know. So if you don't want to deal with it, you can just turn it off, and you don't have to deal with defending your locations. Or if you want to, you can turn it back on, and you can do that on the fly, because again, it would just be a script. So, bam, no problem. If you want to deal with it, you can. If you don't want to deal with it, you can. If you want to deal with it sometimes, you can. If you don't want to deal with it sometimes, you can. If you have just decided to go into a big dungeon crawl because you're looking for the ancient artifact of Timbuktu, then you could turn off defenses for a moment because I'm going to be busy and I don't want to deal with the fact that I could lose that kind of a thing for the moment, right? Just a thought. And it would be really easy to set that up, too. Because, again, the kind of script that would be checking for whether or not your settlements are being attacked would be very, very easy to just not run, to toggle on and off. Ugh. I would also have tons of focus on the story. I know, y'all hate me for that perspective. But, I mean, really, we've already kind of been going in that direction, especially in Fallout 4. I know not all of you like Fallout 4, and I get it. But go in the direction of the story. Go! More story focus. Come on! Witcher 3 did it! You can do it too! Come on! Because you cannot deny that Witcher 3 was not hugely story focused. Tons of character drama, tons of character development, tons of plots, plural. Yeah, go. It's possible. More story. Damn it. And so, this is another reason I would say no Radiant quests, no dynamic quests, no, what's the other term for that? RNG quests. No! Handcraft every one of those suckers. Just go. And make each quest matter. This is actually something I've had a long-standing belief on when it comes to my D&Ding style as a GM. Every quest that you guys go on in my games, and this goes back till, I'd say the first time I really adopted this philosophy was in sometime around 1995 or 1996, one of the two, I'm not sure. But every quest you go on in my games has some significance to story. It might be there to build setting, it might be there to build characters. You can post a link, Nicholas. It has character building. It can be there to emphasize the themes of what's going on. It could be there to actually develop the plot or plots, because there are multiple plots. There are plenty of ways to do that. So have every quest have something to do with something. Make it matter. Every single one of them. There's no need to have padding. There we go. Okay. Especially on an Elder Scrolls game, guys. Your world is huge, and if we want stuff to do, we can pick a direction and go. That's what an Elder Scrolls game is best at. Pick a direction and go, right? For God's sakes. Hey, Lord. Oh, sorry. Hello, Lord of Omicron, Percy, I hate. Another thing I would love, and this is really getting into the ridiculous realm, but whatever, I'm just going to say it. I would love to have my own ship in Elder Scrolls 6. We've already had homes, and I like the home idea, and I know I'm not alone because Hearthfire sold like crazy. And we've been modding in homes and custom stuff since forever, right? And I mean, how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you in Morrowind, in Oblivion, in Skyrim, in Fallout 3, in Fallout New Vegas, in Fallout 4, how many of you would wander around and make big old, I want this home, I want and decorate it and put this little thing here, and I want this thing over here, and I want to put this, like this right up here against the wall, and hang on, I've just got 15 more mods that add more decoration options to my house. How many of you are with me on that? Come on! Shut up, John. So yeah, give me a ship. Give me a ship that I can customize and have as my home and have it be awesome. I would love that. Now, I know what you're going to say. Mods did that. And that is true. I have actually had an airship mod since Morrowind. I had a floating city mod in Morrowind. And yes, I could actually move it. They are a little bit better, yes, Nicolas. There's actually a bit of code they added in Skyrim, where if you open a bookshelf and just put books into it, it'll auto-sort the books onto the shelf. It was great. I loved that mechanic. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I would love to have a ship. You don't even need to do anything with it, necessarily. Like, it just needs to be a functioning ship. And I say functioning on purpose, because it has to move. That's important. Like, having a ship that sits there is okay, but that's basically just another house. That's the same as the mods we already have. Excuse me. But no, I want a ship that moves. I want to be able to like, set a course. I want to be... I'm looking at the map still. I want to be in Valenwood. And it's like, well, I've got a quest up in High Rock in order to go deal with the blah, 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 blah. So I could just fast travel up there because I've already conquered that one fort. But you know what? I really need to heal because, you know, I've just dealt with this horrible thing. So I'm going to get out to, like, my helmsman. Hang on, I've got more ideas here. But let's assume I've got a bigger ship. So I go to helmsman, set a course for this location. Yes, and a little map pops up, all the harbors. It's like, set a course for this harbor. Yes, sir. So the ship sets sail, and you pop back, and you're like, and you wake up, we're there. You know, wouldn't that be cool? As an addendum, hang on, Bragon, I'm getting there. Why not have multiple ship sizes? Or I guess I should say multiple ship classes, if I'm being honest with myself. For example, what if we have, like, basically a schooner? Or I think that's the wrong term, actually. A dinghy is really what it means. In other words, a ship that it's just you. You actually have the ship. You can pilot the ship. Yes, vehicles, by the way. You can actually pilot the ship and swimming around, you know, that kind of a thing. But you have no crew, in other words. Then you have something closer to, I don't know, say, a schooner, actually, where you actually have a crew which you can order around. And then you can have something even bigger, like, say, you know, if you're really kind of crazy, like, go all the way up to a galleon level and actually have this monstrous thing which can actually fight. And I know what you're thinking. Naval battles would be awesome. It would be insane to implement naval battles, if I'm being honest, in this kind of engine. But you know what you could implement? A lot easier. Artillery support. Think about it. Get your ship in position and give the order to artillery support this location that happens to be in range in it. And then go conquer this particular fortress while your ship is shelling it. Come on, nothing? Okay. Come on, anybody? Exactly, Django. It would not be hard to implement what I just described. In fact, it would be very easy. We could probably mod that in now. So, excuse me. And I gotta be honest, I would love for an airship to be in, too. Basic same concept, it's just you can go over air instead of over the sea. You could still do the artillery thing, even, from an airship. That would be perfect, though, Javan! Wouldn't that be awesome to die to your own artillery fire? What? Yeah, basically, Dragon Cat. That's my idea. Another thing, and Bragwin brought this up earlier, I would... Remember, no radiant stuff, no dynamic stuff. All of it has to be crafted, right? I mentioned the all roads lead to Rome theory, okay? The idea here is the end game of this would be one of two basic ideas. We'll go ahead and actually call it 3, because I think 3 is at least feasible. Here's the 3 ideas. Go to the Imperial City and crush the last bit of resistance. Head north to Akaviri, or south, or east, or west. I think it's north. I don't remember. Head to the Akaviri continent and start pushing back in order to lead into the next few DLCs. Or third option, both. kind of a independent New Vegas sort of situation. So that ship that you've spent however much time setting up or whatever, and it's optional. I want to stress that. Don't force any of this down the players' throats. It's optional to set up a ship. You don't have to. But if you do set up your own personal ship, you can take your ship to the Akaviri continent, and you can take your ship out there and actually start shelling the crap out of the landmass, out of the harbor that you're trying to get a beachhead on. We actually do not know if the Nern is round, no, especially since we know for a fact that it is not a standard globular planet. Now, Django, it's funny you say that. I haven't really stated this outright. I am a huge no ultimate. Well, maybe ultimate paradox. Maybe I'll have to think about that. If we're going to voice act the player character, we're going to do it Witcher style. I'm just going to say that flat out. What, you mean other than cost and the fact that they could shoot your own people, Lonely Hero? Because those sound like sufficient consequences to me, personally. I'm a huge proponent of options, of optional, gameplay style. Even if it doesn't make a full amount of sense, I'm still going to be more in favor of the options, even if I disagree with it. If that makes any sense. In other words, I have been arguing for the ability to destroy the entire world. Yes, I have, Omicron. I've seen plenty of them. They are infinitely better than me. I understand. I am in favor of the Renegade approach in Mass Effect. I'm in favor of being able to be a hideously evil bastard and follow. I'm in favor of those things being options. I'll never do them myself, but I'm still in favor of it, even if I disagree with it. Makes sense? This is why I say joining the Akaviri should be an option. Even though I would argue that that's silly, I understand that there are people who would want that to be a thing, and so I would make it an option. I would also make it an option to play an Akaviri, because, I don't know how to further explain that. Yes, I have played the Infamous series. Oh, God, I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time breathing today. Other things, infrastructure damage. Yeah, I would absolutely keep infrastructure damage as a consequence of artillery. In fact, it's the kind of thing I would probably never use artillery in my Conquest. So, but it would be an option because, duh, right? I don't know if I agree with you, Fearsome, but I've heard people who have. So, the vampire thing. Someone, I think it was Baronessa, brought up earlier the idea of vampire thing. I would love the option to play an intelligent vampire, which is funny because if you think about it, you actually had the option to play that in Oblivion. The catch was the fact that you had to do that in Oblivion. The game didn't really support you doing that. The game didn't give you the infrastructure to play an intelligent vampire. Rather, you just had to play an intelligent vampire. Keep yourself up on your blood and have regular sources of blood that you can get on a regular basis. And that was all on you, not the game. The idea of actually getting servants or vassals or slaves or whatever on your side that you can actually keep specifically to feed off of, not kill, not influence, or anything like that, but try to actually continue to hide your vampire status while continuing to do it. That's the kind of thing that I would definitely support. I'm trying to remember. We know that there's different vampires in different chunks of Tamriel, but I feel like there was one location where vampires here on Jaga, where vampires were more accepted. And I'm trying to remember where that was, because I like the idea of, being openly a vampire in a given area. You couldn't get away from that with that everywhere. But, if you go to this specific area or go to this specific type of location, it's like, hey, don't have to hide anything about it, right? Of course, you guys are like, well, Arsh, you haven't talked anything about the actual plot or story of the game. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the primary overarching plot here is intended to be the war, because it's me, and that's what I write. You write what you know. The war against the the Akaviri and or the entirety of Tamriel. Yeah, I remember that, the 3 clans, and you can wipe out 2 of them or all of them if you feel like it. But the overall, we have to bring the Daedra into this somehow. They're just too tied in to the overall mythos of Elder Scrolls to not be a major part of this. So the Daedra would be a major aspect. The war would be a major aspect. But I think really the focus for me would be entirely about founding... I know you're going to hate me for this, but founding a new great empire, basically. A new Cyrodiilic empire. Trying to go ahead and actually make it work. I mean, if you've been paying attention, the Empire in Elder Scrolls has basically been dead. This is kind of loud. Hang on a second. There we go. Since Oblivion, it's been around in name only ever since. Ah, damn it, Dwarven. I probably should have thought this out more before I started streaming. I just really wanted to get some of those ideas out before I forgot them, because Lord knows that happens to me. Like, a lot, actually. Oh, God, that would be so awesome, though. Oh, no kidding. The Daedra could not stay out of this. Okay, you know what I would really, really like? I would really like it... No, I don't want to make a snowman first. I would really like it if the Divines actually intervened in Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, how often have the Divines actually come down and done something? In the Elder Scrolls games, specifically. I think we could count on one hand how many times the Divines have actually done something. Off the top of my head, I'm only coming up with one incident. Just the one. And that's at the conclusion of Oblivion. The Oblivion Vanilla. So I would love to see the Divines actually doing something. Sabo touches on something. I'm going silent because I'm debating some character and class stuff. That has been debated several times, I agree, sure, yeah. So, as we mentioned, this is basically a Ragnarok situation. I like the idea of most of the Daedra, like majority-wise, having actually... Oh, God. Oh, I love that idea. So even before the game begins, I like the idea that the Daedra have stared Hibanoth at Tamriel and are basically... and have chopped themselves off from it. They're not responding to their shrines. Daedric summons aren't working. People can't access the planes of Oblivion. You know? You get where I'm going with this? The idea here being... Or not Oblivion. I can't remember the proper term for it, but you know what I mean. The idea that several of the Daedra have literally... abandoned Tamriel as a place, specifically Tamriel, as a place that is beyond saving, and only a few Daedra are still interacting with it. Probably at least one fairly evil, at least one neutral, because there's no such thing as a good Daedra, and at least one slightly less neutral. I also I love the idea of what the Divines do depends on your actions. Like, have that be a actual branching point in the story. Because you can have branching points in a story. You just don't want to have too many of them, because that gets insane to code. But have a few branching points in the story. Like, for example, have a moment where you have actually tried... You have killed... See around, Jofro. You've unified the various races against, and various nations and various flags against the Akaviri, and the divines intervene, saying, "Okay, you've proven to us that you actually deserve that you have the right to try to exist." Yeah, exactly, Javan. Or exactly all three options. We're going to go ahead and try to save the world because you did. We're going to go ahead and say screw the world because you did, or we're not going to care because you didn't really commit. I like the idea of all three of those being options for how the divines interact with the main plot and the setting in general. If I'm being honest about the class and leveling system, I would use... There's actually a mod in Skyrim that basically does what I would do. I can also describe it by just saying the words Asheron's Call. Everything you do gives you experience. That experience goes into a pool. From that pool, you can then spend it on wherever you want to spend it. That's the system, right there. Bam. No dumping money on training. No trying to actually sit there and cast summon stuff 5 million times. No getting hit to increase your health. All of your actions, crafting, trading, unlocking, interacting with other people, succeeding at skill checks, failing at skill checks, killing enemies, exploring new locations, completing a dungeon, conquering a location. All of these actions would give you a chunk of experience. And that experience then gives you, again, it's a pool, it's a resource, a currency that you can spend directly on. Well, it costs me, these are totally made up numbers, it costs me 1,000 experience to raise my conjuring. And I happen to have 5,000 experience in my pool, so bam, I'm going to raise my conjuring a point, because I have the experience to do it. I don't remember Dragon Cat. I think I had it, but I haven't had Skyrim installed in a long time. Give me a moment. See if I can find that mod that I am referring to really quick here. I feel like it's Sky Exp. Sky XP. Oh, Baronessa got there before me, apparently. Yeah, it looks like it is Sky Exp. Is what I'm thinking of. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much what I would do. I see the problem with the standard system of Morrowind and Oblivion, especially Skyrim, is your levels basically get tied down to your money pouch, especially at higher ends. It basically gets to the point where it's like, okay, I need to dump money into leveling, and I get that, and it works, and it worked, I should say, but you know, the alternative, of course, in all of the above games is to simply sit there and cast a spell a bajillion times in order to raise your stat. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's just not fun. In theory, the idea is what you do raises what you are, but in reality, that just leads to very lopsided characters or non-combat focused characters in a combat focused scaling system. Oh, by the way, scaling, leveling, gone! As I already explained. The only things I would scale would be the champions or commanders or whatever of locations that can be conquered. I wouldn't even do that in all of them, just major ones. Man, I solely leveled off of money in Oblivion. You kidding me? Well, I shouldn't say solely. That's not true. I 100% leveled off of money in Morrowind. I 50% leveled off of money in Oblivion. And I basically 100%ed off of leveling in Skyrim. From gold, I mean. That's just my opinion. Leveling points, well, see, that's an interesting point. Javan points out something interesting. You might ask, why are levels even in the Elder Scrolls series? Because they don't really serve a function other than as a arbitrary point to increase your health, stamina, mana, right? And that's actually true. There is one very important reason why the levels actually have existed in the Elder Scrolls series, and that's for level scaling. They don't scale to your stats, they scale to the number that is your level. If you're level 5, all the enemies have the variable of 5 on their level scaling. Make sense? because, as I just said, level scaling is basically nuked out of the game, the levels themselves could theoretically be removed. The catch is coming up with a new formula in order to make sure that whatever you're fighting is actually competent at dealing with you in the manner I described earlier with regards to the commander, etc. Doable, especially if you only have to do it for one type of mob in the entire game rather than everything. I'm trying to think what kind of formula would work for that, because there's a lot of stuff you could do with that. You could do it based off of health values. You could do it based off of combat output damage, which is a thing you could track. You know, there's a lot of things you could do with that. I'd have to think about that. Am I using the right term when I think of the Thalmor? Let me look that up really quick. Because I believe I am. But let me look that up. Okay, yes, I am thinking of the right thing. Okay, so I wouldn't mind the Thalmor being removed as a force halfway through the game, basically no matter what you do. Like the idea of no matter who you're siding with, you can't side with the Thalmor. You might be able to side with the Aldmeri Dominion, but not the Thalmor. Screw the Thalmor. You might, in other words, to put this into real-life terms, I'm okay with siding with Germany. I'm not okay with siding with the Nazis. I think that is a line I would not cross, even in a so-called evil playthrough or whatever. I would not allow that. Top 3 favorite races in Elder Scrolls, in no particular order. Argonian, then the rest. I don't know. I guess Argonian, Khajiit. I can't think of another race that really serves. I like all the races basically equally. It's not like I dislike any of the races. It's just the only race I've ever really taken a liking to is the Argonians. Hey, Dimension. I think Azura would, going back to what I said earlier, I think Azura would be one of the people still present. Equal to everyone else except for Argonians, Zero Hunter. The lusty Argonian maid. I made this horrible mistake of Google image searching lusty Argonian maid once. Don't do that, by the way. Hey, Chaos Rider. I was doing some national stuff, and then I had to talk about Skyrim. Or, not Skyrim, Elder Scrolls. So, I think Azura would definitely still be here. I would absolutely think that Sheogorath would still be here, absolutely. And I do agree that Sanguine would still be here. I'm not sure anyone else would. And that feels like a nice spread. The idea that... Because Azura is obvious. Even though Azura is not good, I will argue to the ends of Earth that Azura is not a good Daedra. She's the closest we have to good, but she's not... Well, actually, that's a lie. I would say Meridia is more good than her. But, you know, I would say Azura is simply too invested in Tamriel to let go of it. Good, bad, evil, doesn't matter. She has put so much of her effort and time into this freaking continent. She either is a victim of some cost fallacy or simply cares too much at this point to let go. So she's still there. Sheogorath, I don't even have to explain why he's there. Yes, as I said earlier, Sebo, the Akaviri. And the, just think of the chafing. You know, the harsh skin, the reptilian skin. Just, you know, just think about that for a minute, Foo Dogs. And the, and Sanguine, I think, would actually be a good example of our, as weird as this sounds, evil Daedra. Hear me out. The idea is Sanguine would become the kind of Daedra who is actually encouraging his followers and other people to just go with it. It's Ragnarok, you know. It's the playing the fiddle as the city burns concept. Sanguine is actually actively encouraging mortals to just say, screw it. I would actually have that be a fairly major plot point of the fact that there's an entire faction or religious zealous group or cult or whatever you want to call it that is built up around Sanguine, whose entire purpose is let it burn. Let it burn. and how they've been actively fueling the fires of chaos in general, helping some sides, fighting against other sides, and in some cases just being there and just completely adding to the mess of the world. I would have that definitely be a thing. Now, I always thought the Akaviri were based on the Japanese thing. Am I wrong in picturing that? I mention that because they do have a unique formation style of approach. But I have to admit, having the Akaviri marching like the Roman Legion would be interesting. Or like the Greek phalanx concept. Oof. Anyways, yeah, exactly. Enigma. So there's that cult following Sanguine who are just making everything worse because that's what Sanguine wants. Then there's Sheogorath, who, believe it or not, is actually the neutral option here. The entire thing that Sheogorath is doing, he's still manipulating, he's still working with it, but he's like, this would be so hard to write. I'd have to like sit down with sheafs of paper and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it over and over, because the idea would be that Sheogorath is actually helping, but he's not fully aware of the fact that he is, if that makes any sense. Because remember, Sheogorath is the champion of Cyrodiil. Remember? Same guy. And so some semblance of his original self, some semblance of him there, is pushing him to try and aid in the situation, but he can't just walk in and help because he's Sheogorath. He's freaking, that level of the two sides of insanity meshed into one, right? So it would be very hard to write that, but I think this is the kind of thing that you could do so that all of his actions and all of working with his group and the people he's been doing with and the strings he's been pulling are both helping and hurting the situation overall. And of course, Azura is trying to work through the situation. I would probably put Azura as more the, in Mass Effect terms, the Renegade option. Like, you could actually work for and support Azura. But as you're doing so, like, as I described earlier, rather than trying to get these two leaders to coordinate or get their trust or respect or whatever, you blackmail them. Or you kill them. Or you replace them politically with someone else who is more akin to, the more dark and negative forms of positive reinforcement, politically speaking. That's a whole other topic I'm not going to get into, sure you. I would argue no, personally, but that's because the Arthas Lich King dynamic was very unique. And I gave my theory on how the Daedra in general worked some time ago, and I don't have anything else to add to that at the moment. That would be horrible, Bragwin. I'm not sure I like that idea. That's been something that's been debated a long time. For those who don't understand this concept, you know how in video games everything waits on you? Like there, in other words, to put it into different terms, it's usually possible in a video game to 100% the content one time through. Usually, this is the exceptions to this are rare and usually involve just like a second or third playthrough in a new game, plus kind of a situation, right? But you can do all the content because, oh my God, there's this horrible travesty that's about to happen over here, but it doesn't start to happen until you go there to do it, right? Some people disagree with that idea. Some people think the world should move without you, kind of like in a D&D situation. But there is a catch to that. If the world moves without you, you cannot do everything, at least not in a single playthrough. And that bothers some players. It gets to the point where they feel like they're being punished for exploring or punished for taking their time because they want to actually do everything. They don't want to miss content, right? Now, the flip side of that is, of course, if you have the world goes on without you mentality, it makes it feel more like a world. Because it is actually moving and functioning regardless of you. That there is still events happening. There's still things going on. There's still major events that you are missing. You follow me? New Game Plus on Elder Scrolls. Oh, God. That's funny you say that, Bragwin. That is so funny. So I haven't mentioned where I would actually have the Elder Scroll in the game show up yet. Bragwin just mentioned it. Like almost copy. I don't know if she means the exact same way I mean it, but let me put it to you this way. Have it be that you find the Elder Scroll, like in the last dungeon or whatever. And you pick up the Elder Scroll and you're like, behold, these are my tales, blah, blah, blah. And you get the option to make a new character. Except this new character will have all your equipment and all your money and all your stats and all your skills, but it's a New Game Plus. You know, that kind of a thing. That is totally what I would have done with the Elder Scroll situation. You don't have to do that, of course. You don't have to New Game Plus it. You could just read the Elder Scroll like every other hero of the games has read an Elder Scroll. I would definitely keep the Elder Scroll aspect of the Elder Scrolls. I shouldn't have to explain why. And I would make it so that you're actively seeking an Elder Scroll at the end, specifically to try and, wait for it, find the Nerevarine. Because everything with regards to the Akaviri, you've been getting bits and pieces, little bits of lore, where they've actually been mentioning the Nerevarine. And they've actually been talking about him, and how he is actually on the Akaviri continent, whose name I can't remember right now, and has been an active force there for some time. And so one of the final concluding quests is to go and try and seek out the Nerevarine out on that continent, as you're pushing back the Akaviri advance. And when you go ahead and try to find him, well, let's just say that I would probably end the vanilla game on a cliffhanger from hell and leave it at that. And then DLCs would try to deal with the aftermath of that, because I feel like the Nerevarine should be, you know, a mini expansion by himself. And I mean that sincerely. Yeah. I would also... Okay, I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you the idea. The Nerevarine started the invasion. The Nerevarine pushed for it. He looked at the Akaviri and basically has been whipping them into a unified force over the last, I guess it's been like 140-ish years, something like that. And actually, not necessarily, Sabo. As weird as that sounds. You could have the Nerevarine be someone who is a reflective individual. Now, if you don't, there's two ways you can do this. Let me get to that. Remind me, Sabo. Remind me. So the Nerevarine started the invasion. He has been whipping the Akaviri into a more unified, codified force, basically forming what is, for all intents and purposes, a new empire amongst the Akaviri for the last century plus, and doing so in a way that makes them into this, I don't know. I don't have a good real life example here. Trying to make them into a force that's actually going to be a force for good. You know, really pushing medical aid, really pushing medical technology, really pushing the accessibility of healing and distribution and whatnot to the people. Trying to work on public works, trying to improve health and safety. You know, that kind of a thing. Basically, trying to innovate an actual infrastructure of the Akaviri in such a way that they have this wonderful, you know, highlighted empire, etc., and then come and bring that to Tamriel, because he's aware of just how incredibly screwed up Tamriel actually is at this point in time. In fact, I love the idea of the fact that the Nerevarine, like, there would be a quest earlier on where you find out about, we have to find where the Akaviri came from so we can go after them, right? So there's a whole quest chain about trying to find the one scout ship that they found on the coast of Skyrim. And this whole over the course of this whole quest chain, we find out that there was one Akaviri ship that managed to land there and was just sent as a scout by the Nerevarine, specifically to see how Tamriel was doing and how things have been happening here, and try to feel out what kind of how it would work. And those people were slaughtered outright. And just barely managed to get some kind of a message back, either magical or whatever, doesn't matter, in order to highlight the fact that there was this horrible, destructive war, and they were brutally slaughtered and all that fun stuff. And that's what led the Nerevarine to decide, okay, we're going to come back with force of arms rather than a treaty. Anyways, how would the Nerevarine appear? There's two options here. Option one, have him be a reflective individual. In other words, his appearance looks however you want him to look, which actually kind of ties into option 2 in many ways. Anyone remember Dragon Age Inquisition, where you had a character creation screen for when Hawk showed up? Make that happen. so that, and I wouldn't do it until like way towards the end of the game. I mean, like as you're going north, and as it's like we must find the Nerevarine, da 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 da, and then a character creation screen pops up, and you can actually customize what exactly the Nerevarine looks like. And I can remake Zemus, who was my Nerevarine, and you can remake whoever yours was, or you can make it someone silly or new or whatever, and the modders would go crazy with it and turn him into a pony. But hey, options. Whether I do them or not, I'm still in favor of them. Hi, Knife Forger. You've missed me enthusing about something that will never be. Which is very appropriate for me. Why would you ever do that, Frozen? That is so crazy. Pony Nerevarine. Now, the idealist in me... I doubt that, Bragman. This will never be. My honest idea, and for those of you who didn't actually... Hey, blah, blah guy. Welcome to my stream. This is a bit of an odd stream because I'm not playing anything right now. I'm just talking about Elder Scrolls and ideas for Elder Scrolls 6. But hi. Don't be a stranger. Shoutouts. Words. The idealist in me would love to see all of Tamriel be in Elder Scrolls 6. It's what I've wanted since forever. In fact, I actually predicted that for Skyrim. And I have predicted that for Elder Scrolls 6 in several ways. What do you mean, Dragon Cat? But the realist in me acknowledges that because of the way we're doing the design of this game, having all of Tamriel there is not physically feasible. Based on sheer time investment, especially since we're not doing dynamic quests, we're not doing radiant quests, we're not doing any procedurally generated anything. We'd have to actually build all of Tamriel, and we'd have to actually build all of the towns, and build all the NPCs, and build all the quests, and it would take an absolutely ludicrous amount of time. The realist in me, therefore, would probably chop down Tamriel a bit, and I would try and come up with a lore reason why you don't go to the other provinces. I would have multiple provinces, absolutely. But I would have lore reasons for why you don't go to the other ones. Maybe the war is just too bad. Maybe they are literally wastelands and just horrible, terrible places that have, monostorms and other destructive things that prevent regular transit there. High Rock is obviously mandatory. I mean, literally mandatory. I would say Hammerfell is equally mandatory, as is Cyrodiil. So those three are, in my opinion, bare minimum required for the story that I have outlined. Past that, it gets a little trickier. Excuse me. Actually, Chaos Rider, I highlighted the exact leveling system I would do earlier. And it's Asheron's Call, if you've ever played that. Ooh... No, I would not, Javan, because this is an Elder Scrolls game, and that is my reason why. The ability to go and walk to your destination is too important to the Elder Scrolls formula, in my opinion. Just way too important. I get where you're going with, and I would totally do that for certain other games, but not in Elder Scrolls. I'm sorry. Oh, the bastards, the extra-dimensional... the extra-dimensional mages. I can't remember their names. What is their name? It doesn't matter. Those guys, would they be a part of this? Yes, absolutely. I just have to think about exactly how they would be involved and relevant. That's an interesting idea, Enigma. One thing that admittedly, the Sijic, thank you. One thing that admittedly amuses me, go ahead and make fun of me for this, is the idea that instead of adding Cyrodiil to one of the 3 provinces, we take Cyrodiil out and re-add Skyrim. Now, before you yell at me, the idea here being that the resistance that has been pushing it back against the Thalmor has basically been wiped out of Cyrodiil. Cyrodiil has been crushed. And the Empire and the remnants of the Imperials and the Nords and, you know, the Redguards and all the others who are fighting against the Thalmor are actually based in Skyrim, and the new Imperial capital is in Whiterun. And I admit that idea just amuses me tremendously. There's a lot you could do with it. I'd really, really have to think about the province problem. Because, again, it's the idealism versus the realism problem. Idealistically, really, all of Tamriel should be involved in a story like this. But realistically, that would just take so long. So, yeah, we would have to narrow it down. And again, in my opinion, High Rock and Hammerfall are absolutely mandatory. 100%. I'm not moving off of that. I refuse to budge on that concept. Because Solitude was already crushed. Chemic. I mean, look how close Solitude is to their force. No, Solitude was conquered early on in the war. Yeah, and as Enigma points out, Whiterun is actually a great tactical location. Some lore on the Elder Scrolls. Man, there's so much lore on the Elder Scrolls, I don't know where to start. I really don't. Hey, Bjorn Odinson. What's up? Yeah, Whiterun's also a trade city. It's a nexus point of, like, everything. It's got very lush and rich local terrain. It can independently exist. It has wonderful... It's like geographically the perfect location to run Skyrim. I'm a little amazed it isn't the actual capital of Skyrim. I don't think destroying the Somerset Isles is necessary, Bragwin, but you remember how I mentioned earlier a Monostorm, right? Well, that could be a tie that we could tie that in. Have the Sijic Order. Oh, DLC fodder. Hear me out. DLC fodder. Have the Sijic Order be the reason why we can't go to, insert province here, and there's plenty of them. And yeah, Magic has just kind of screwed up in certain areas. And so one of the DLCs is going and finding the Sijic Order, fixing it, and then as a result of that, opening up the new province. Okay, sorry. I'm kind of exploding with joy because I just had a great idea, guys. You remember what an expansion is, right? I mean, you've heard that idea. Expansions aren't really done nowadays, if you notice. Nowadays, it's all about DLCs and sequels. Why not have Elder Scrolls 6 have expansions, real expansions, rather than DLCs? We could do all of Tamriel that way, guys. Have each province be a whole new expansion tacked onto it. And have reasons why. Okay, now we're going to the Somerset. Now we're going to Valenwood. Now we're going to Elsewhere. Now we're going to Black Marsh. Now we're going to Morrowind. That would make it realistic. That would actually make it legitimately possible to do in real life and still have it be all of the content we want and all of the stories we want to tell. Okay, I want to try and answer Blah Blah's question about the lore. Okay, so the general lore of the Elder Scrolls series is like this. There are these scrolls that are called Elder Scrolls. Stop me if I'm going too fast. I'm sorry. I'm in a weird mood today. So you've got, here's my notes. I'll pretend this. So here's my Elder Scrolls, right? So these are physical objects, right? But these physical objects, yes, it would, Corwin! So here's this physical object that I can actually pick up and read. Now, the nature of an Elder Scroll is unique because it basically affects time in both directions. Some people don't get this. Some people do. I don't know. I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can. Forgive me. But the idea is this. Time in this setting is completely fluid until someone picks up an Elder Scroll and writes it down. Okay? So you're like, well, what do you mean writes it down? When a person interacts physically and is one of there's a term for it, I forget what it is, I think it's the term champion, but anyways, there's a term for a type of person who interacts physically with an Elder Scroll that writes that chunk of history into history. It's no longer morphic, it's no longer this mess of, multiple possible timelines and whatnot. It concretes into a single timeline, past and future, within a bracket. So even if you read the scroll here in the timeline, going back to here and up to here, bam, this timeline is now locked in. Does that make sense? This is the nature of the games themselves. Every major character you play in one of these games at some point in the game interacts with an Elder Scroll, making the game that you are currently playing. And that playthrough that you're currently playing. It's actually kind of a nice in-character, out-of-character situation, too. Because it means that on any given playthrough, that timeline is concreted how you are playing it, that playthrough, because that character is the one who interacts with the Elder Scrolls. So, yeah. That's true, Rory, but I see no problem with that, personally. Hey, Yuri the Guri. That's actually interesting. I'm glad he's liking the FF videos. Progressive, to answer your question in brief, usually the difference between an expansion and a DLC simply comes down to amount of content. Usually expansions add to a game either new code or new concepts or new mechanics or whatever, but that's not actually necessary. It really boils down to how much you add content-wise. For example, Dragonborn was a decent amount of content, and I will freely admit Dragonborn, is kind of in the line between DLC and expansion. But certain other expansions are much more definitively expansions, where it's just there's no way you could call, for example, the Shivering Isles a DLC. That was tons and tons of content. By contrast, however, Knights of the Nine was much more definitively a DLC. Does that make sense? So anyways, back to blah blah. So that's what the premise of the whole series is about, these Elder Scrolls, hence the name. So you always play one of these main characters, continent movers, as I like to call them. And continent movers, you have a huge impact on the world around you. It's all about open world exploration, that kind of thing, of course. But you also learn over the course of the series about the history of the world, which I can't even begin to summarize to you. Basically, each Elder Scrolls game, things have gotten a little bit worse and a little bit weaker. Like in Morrowind, the overall continent of Tamriel is actually in a pretty good state. The Thalmor haven't really risen to power. The Empire is still doing well. It's got a good emperor on its throne right now. And everything's actually going pretty well. And you solve a major issue, and then you head off. Oblivion, things are getting much worse. I'm not going to spoil Oblivion for you, but some stuff happens there. By Skyrim's time, the continent of Tamriel is actually getting pretty bad. The Empire is Empire in name only, and there's the Thalmor, who are basically Nazis, who are trying to kill everything that is not them, who are so Nazis they're actually willing to rewrite reality to remove other species from reality. That's how committed they are to their Nazi ideal. It's a little bit ridiculous. And then there's the game I propose, in which we're actually in Ragnarok and trying to either fix it or speed it along. One of the two. Depending on what you choose. I actually agree, Kemek. Most Bethesda stuff tends to be on the borderlines of DLCs and expansions. I would say definitively that the Mournhold expansion, I forget what it's called, in Morrowind was definitively an expansion. Shivering Isles was definitively an expansion. Past that, it's a little bit... Rory, they were trying to remove the... It's actually complicated how they're doing it, but they're trying to remove the overall acknowledgement of one of the divines in order to kind of, sort of... remove... Okay, if you don't actually follow a divine, that divine loses some of its power. This is a fairly common concept. And so they were trying to not follow that divine to sort of retroactively remove that divine from history, which would have retroactively rewrote much of recent history. And by recent history, I mean the last few millennia. And they were going to try to, through their actions, influence that rewriting of history to write other races out of history. Because the the Thalmor specifically, who are bastards, again, they're basically Nazis on crack, were so committed to the cause. Keep in mind, they would die. Like, every Thalmor doing this would have died if they succeeded in their task, and been erased from history, but they were willing to do it to ensure a new world in which only Altmer exist, no other race, which itself is kind of ridiculous, because all of the Mer are actually related to each other in many different ways, and the Altmer were not the first Mer, while we're on the subject, but whatever. Actually, Tagola, I've suspected that myself several times. Oh my god, Joven, that really does sound like Ragnarok. That sounds like a existential Ragnarok. Holy crap. Okay, Shadow. The Thalmor are the Nazis cranked to 11. Is that an easier to understand metaphor? Taken to an extreme. It's freaking... Now, the... shoot, what's the dwarves' names? I can't think of their names all of a sudden. The... Hey, Spirit of Memory, by the way. Well, not all Altmer are like Thalmor. I mean, for God's sakes. Dwemer, thank you. Dwemer. I've thought for some time... I thought for some time that the Dwemer, they need to decide if they're ever going to do something with the Dwemer, basically. And I'm really torn if I would or not. There's a lot of potential with the Dwemer, but I think if I were to bring them back, I would bring them back in an expansion. In the format. So let's go ahead and just say High Rock, Hammerfell, Skyrim. Bam. There's our initial 3 continents, or provinces, excuse me, in the initial vanilla game, along with a chunk of the Akaviri continent, whose name I don't remember right now. And then we have an expansion, like, say, with the Somerset Isles, which has to do with the Sigic, okay? Then we can have an entire expansion involving Morrowind, which has to do with the Dwemer. And that's how I would do it if I was going to do it. Let me make that clear. I'm not sure if I would or not. It's a very tricky line to cross because they never actually answered what happened to the Dwemer. But I admit one idea I like about the Dwemer is that they were pulled out of time, but only temporarily, if that makes any sense. In other words, for them, no time has passed since they... So they're just boom, and all of a sudden it's a few hundred years later for them. A few hundred years later, but they don't realize it. It's only been a few seconds for them. I don't know, Kemek. I don't know which order I would do it in. There's so much room for growth and potential there. Like, I love the idea of a Reclaiming Cyrodiil expansion. Kind of a plot-light expansion, because the whole plot is just reclaiming the province, because it's been wrecked by the Thalmor, but a lot more of the building up the continent, founding, more of the empire building mechanics really flesh out that side game into a bit of a the forefront of that particular expansion. And some people wouldn't like it, and I understand, but then some people would like the increased focus on that mechanic, so that would be a really good time, I think, to put more thought, effort, work, and design into the empire building mechanic of Elder Scrolls 6, right there with the Reclaimed Cyrodiil. So we've got the Reclamation of Cyrodiil, we've got the Dwemer of Morrowind, hey Jedi Mew, we've got the... re-exploration of Somerset, and that would probably involve helping Somerset to recover from the Monostorm that's been wrecking it for however long. I'm not sure what I would do with Valenwood, Elsewhere, or Black Marsh. Like overall arc-wise. And I need a drink. Fortunately, I have a drink right here. Goat throwing catapults. Yes. We'll start the game with that. Instead of starting off as a prisoner, the game opens, it's like, Elder Bethesda Softworks presents. And then you just see this goat. And then the game actually starts. Ah. No, I don't, Progressive. I can't even drink them. They hurt my throat too much. No, I just had one on my desk. Night Forge. I usually grab two whenever I get up. Oh, absolutely, Enigma. Like I said, the reclaiming Cyrodiil would be a really great idea, a really great time to flesh out the empire building mechanic of being able to customize a city, being able to build it up, being able to return it, etc. 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 Kemek, you will find out at the full extent of that when that stream finally goes live. But let's just say I made a fortress in Fallout 4 that was many, many stories tall. And the only reason I stopped building it was because I ran out of room, basically. Interesting, Jedi View. I can see that. I did need more room, Deutsch. I showed you it. I ran out of complexity or whatever it was. I was like, whatever, fine. So I had to stop building my massive fortress. I was actually going to build an entire airship thing. Like a battleship, basically, right there. And I frickin' ran out. But anyways. Hey, little Billy. No, we did not. No one will ever say that again. Damn, I'm actually out of major story ideas. I'm so pathetic. I'm looking at a map of Tamriel right now, and it's like, okay, I've got a story idea for there, and there. Then there's those three little provinces, Valenwood, Elsewhere, and Black Marsh. And as much as I would absolutely adore seeing Black Marsh in an Elder Scrolls game, I don't know what I'd do with it. Not in context of this story, especially. Oh, by the way, I would probably have the Nerevarine either kill, you heard me right, the rest of the Divines, or join the Divines based on our actions with regards to how the Divines are interacting with us in Elder Scrolls 6. The Thalmor? I wouldn't mind seeing the Thalmor, but not in a major thing. It would be more like a background thing, I think. Yes, you've tapped me dry, which is funny because I was just doing national campaign stuff, which was sapping the hell out of my creativity because I'm only up to turn 2 right now. You should see my notes I've got. It's insane. I've got pages and pages of notes for every nation just up to turn 2 here. Like I was just looking at Spirit of Memories nation. Where is it? Hang on. Gotta find it again now. Where is it? Here it is, here it is. The Empire of the Nemi. Let's see, here's my notes for them. Religious, insane, crazy, megalomaniacal, evil are my notes on them. Excuse me. And of course, they're conquering everything around them. And what else we got here? Oh yeah, they call the WAG the land without gods. That's a nice touch right there. Well, the Hist would certainly be used, but I mean, interesting idea with Himeas Mora there. Guys, trust me, Spirit of Memory is like the second most evil nation in the national campaign. The only one who's actually more evil is Silver Dragoon. Baroness, let's see, where's Baroness's notes here? Let's see, okay. I have some notes I can't tell you about where you're currently located. There's the fortification, there's the malnutrition issue, there's a note here that I said everyone died, literally everyone. Here's the politician's note, which I'm not going to share out loud. Laying claim to territory in the WAG, that's one of the notes for Baroness's thing. Organized crime is another note for Baroness's nation. And, I guess that's actually all I've got right now. I actually have a bunch of notes, but I don't want to share most of those. Alright, hang on. I don't even have Night Forger yet, because I haven't gotten to your turn yet. The best evil. Anyways. I should probably at least like cut off the stream or something. And get back to work. Sigh. Must get back to work. But I really wanted to talk about my Elder Scrolls 6. I'm probably going to throw this up onto YouTube, and then I'll have lots and lots of people tell me how terrible my ideas are. Which is more or less the norm there. There we go. I don't know if I'll stream later. I definitely will not be streaming as of about an hour and a half from now. So, I don't know. I've got a lot of chores to do tonight. Anyways, I'm going to get back to the national campaign stuff. I'll still be in chat if you want to keep chatting, and if you want to ask me any questions or whatever. So, I'll see you around, guys.